Hi everyone, my name's I am a DPhil student at the University of Oxford where I study pediatrics, and I'm an incoming student to Harvard Medical School in a few years once I finish up my PhD here. Before that, I studied molecular and cellular biology at Johns Hopkins University, where I happened to get a 132 on the psych portion of the MCAT, which is what I'm going to talk to you all about today. So, title of this video, How I Studied for the Psych section of the MCAT, so just going to dive right in. So as you're preparing to start studying for the psych section of the MCAT, the first question you really have to ask yourself is what your previous level of preparation has been. If you're a psychology major, a sociology minor, you're in a really different position than if you've really never seen any of these concepts before in a formal course. I was lucky in that I had just taken general psychology and introduction to sociology at a university, even though it wasn't for a particular major or minor, so my preparation was kind of in the middle. So I'm going to kind of give my preparation in that context of someone who knew a little bit of the psych soc content already, but I'm gonna, as I would recommend changes if you don't have any prior preparation, I'll mention them in this video, so it'll still apply to you. Anyways, to get started, I think the main key to success on the psych soc section is memorization, memorization, memorization. Fundamentally, this test comes down to whether you're going to recognize a particular term or not that might not be phrased in a way that's going to make it familiar to you. For example, you might know what positive punishment is if I give it in the example of a particular experiment, but if I give you some scenario, will you be able to label this as positive punishment versus, say, positive reinforcement? We just need to know what these terms mean. So my studying, first and foremost, as someone who had already seen these concepts before, really came down to rememorizing these terms. So for that, I turned to two primary resources. First of all, my absolute favorite, which is Anki. I used the Miles Down deck and went through all of the psychology and sociology cards. For that section, I was reviewing it every single day, fairly religiously, and found that that was really helping to get those concepts stuck in my brain. For just a general conceptual review, beyond just memorizing terms, I really turned to Khan Academy's psychology and sociology resource videos. In addition to watching the videos, there are some great summary documents that are posted online. There's a 300-page one and a 100-page one that go through all of the course content that's covered on the Khan Academy series for psychology and sociology for the MCAT. The great thing about that is that it was created in collaboration with the AAMC. So the AAMC made sure that that covered a broad range of what they test. So that to me was kind of the framework document I used to make sure I was studying everything that I needed to know for the psychology and sociology sections. For example, there really wasn't much physiology in my psychology tests. There's actually a decent bit on the psychology section of the MCAT, so you have to be aware of these different differences between potentially your class and the MCAT that you're going to be taking. So that to me was really the foundational document I used to make sure I was studying everything that needed to be covered on the psychology and sociology sections of the MCAT. So for example, my psychology class didn't really cover much information about sensory perception. There's a decent bit about the physiology of sensing on the actual MCAT. That was something I really needed to be made aware of as a gap in my knowledge by this Khan Academy document that I would then go to fill. That was something I really needed to be made aware of as a gap in my knowledge by this Khan Academy document that I would then go to fill. How did I fill that? I first read the 300-page MCAT document. I actually read that cover to cover just to get a broad sense of what was going on, but I really read it in depth for the sections I wasn't aware of. And then I watched the corresponding Khan Academy videos. In addition to that, for every concept, no matter how familiar I was with it, I reviewed the 100-page Khan Academy document and made sure I could recall every term on there, and I made sure that I knew all the Anki terms which corresponded, and really just all the Anki terms for the psych soc section in general. For those who might need a little bit more conceptual understanding of some of the psych soc concepts, particularly the ones that can potentially be commonly misconstrued with one another. A lot of terms, there's really fine distinctions between what constitutes term A and what constitutes term B, and it's really easy to get the two confused. I'd really recommend potentially turning to additional preparation materials. So one I really recommend is like the Kaplan MCAT Behavioral Sciences book. You can buy this not even in the set, though I love all the Kaplan books. And it's a good kind of foundational resource. But if you have the underlying psychology and sociology coursework in your belt, you might find that you don't need the book. So I wouldn't purchase it until you actually find that you need it, potentially save yourself some money. As you really learn the concepts, then you really transition to trying to apply them. For me, I really found that the AAMC's testing was sufficient for me to feel comfortable with most of the psychology and sociology concepts that appeared on the MCAT. I was, as I mentioned in a previous video, eligible for the fee assistance program, so I had all of this practice tests available to me in addition to some section banks, and that was a plethora of questions for me to get through and gave me plenty of material to continue to go over. I will say, I don't think it was entirely comprehensive, and you might find that there's a term that pops up on your actual MCAT that wasn't on any of these resources, whether it's the Khan Academy doc, Anki, anything like that, which was kind of scary. So one thing, if you want to do more psych-soc preparation, I think there's nothing wrong with getting a UWorld subscription, especially if your psych-soc scores aren't really where you want them to be, because in addition to just being some more challenging psych-soc content for you to practice, introducing potentially new terms that you might not know, UWorld has fantastic answer explanations. So even for those concepts that might be covered in this Kaplan book, you're going to see all these concepts written out in a different way that might make more sense to you. So while I personally found that the AAMC tests were sufficient, I would definitely have immediately turned to UWorld if I wasn't getting the scores that I wanted. And that's basically it. For psych-soc, again, the key thing is memorization, which is different from the other two concept-based portions of the test, Chem Phys and the bio section. You really don't need to worry as much about getting a comprehensive understanding of concepts from a book like this, as much as you just need to get familiarity with terms. And then oftentimes you're just able to use your logic to get through the question. You're labeling a scenario that might have happened to you in daily life. You're familiar with a lot of these concepts already because you live them. So just make sure that you're setting yourself up for success by understanding those terms, reviewing the concepts to see if there's any that might be easily confused that you might want to go over, and then testing yourself with real practice questions to make sure that you're good to go on test day. All that together, I found that I was prepared for test day success, and I hope you are too. Thanks.